Hey crafty friends, it's Maria with MTaylor Creations. Thanks so much for coming back and checking out my latest creation. So today I am going to be working on an A2 Gatefold card, and I picked up some beautiful paper from Hobby Lobby that I wanted to use today, and so I'm going to be showing that in just a moment. But first off, I'm going to start off with a piece of cardstock that is 5.5 by 8.5, and then I'm going to score 2 1/8 from each side in order to fold those flaps in from the ends, and then that will give us our gatefold for this card. I'm just furnishing those flaps down. Okay, next up I'm just showing here the measurements for the card base. Okay, and then I'm showing this paper now. It's from the paper studio called Katherine, and it's got foil and pearlescent sort of features on the card. Well, it's pattern paper, but it's a little bit thicker, so it almost reminds me of a thinner cardstock. Just showing the papers that I chose for this project today. Trying to show the pearl features on the paper. It's such a pretty paper. All right, and so this card was inspired by a card I made for Craft Roulette last week, and so this was another Hobby Lobby pattern paper called the Disco Cowgirl, and so just use that, and so this will be the style of card that I'm going to create today. Just going to do a flip through of this paper again. Really like this paper. It's got doesn't have the pearl. This just has the foil accents within the paper. So it's a little fun design. Okay, and then I am going to start cutting down the pattern paper for my card today. And I'll start off with the piece of paper that I'm going to put on the inside of the card. And I'll cut that to 4 by 5 1/4, so it'll just fit on the inside of that panel. And I do feel like this paper is light enough that you can just write over that, and so you can write your message on the inside there without it causing too many issues. Okay, next up I'll go ahead and cut the outside flaps. And for these, I cut them at 2 1/8 by 5.5 initially, but you'll see later on that I do end up having to trim that off a little bit just because of the um, measurements being off just a tad bit with having to score that cardstock for the flap. And so I would just recommend cutting at 2 by 5.5. All right, and so next up we're going to work on our belly band. And so I'm just taking one of the pattern papers and cutting this at 1 3/4 by 6, and then just kind of showing how I'll loop that together to create the belly band in just a bit. Okay, and our front panel, that is going to be cut at 3.5 by 4 3/4. And I will bring in a matte layer just in order to sort of separate that from the panels I've got on the two flaps there. So I bring in a piece of shimmer white cardstock, and I cut this at 3.5 by 4 3/4. Okay, and just sort of dry fitting all this to make sure I like how that's going to look. And I'll go ahead and start adhering everything together using my ATG. I'll start off with the front panel, and I did have a little bit of tape that went over, so I'm just kind of rolling that over the edge of the pattern paper and lining this up on the matte layer there. Okay, and I'm just going to go through and adhere all the different pattern papers to the intended areas. Okay, and then so for this inside, I'm just going to line that up evenly. There's a small layer of the white showing around all the edges there. Okay, and then the two flaps, I'll go ahead and again adhere those to the outside. I'm just making sure that I've got the design lined up to where it looks like it's continuous on the front whenever the two panels close. Okay, so going ahead and adhering both of the panels here to the front flaps. Again, had a little bit of tape over the edge, so just rolling that back over on itself. All right, and that's where I see here it's just overlapping a little bit, so just going ahead and trimming off that excess pattern paper. And so again, I would just recommend having that pattern paper cut to 2 by 5.5, and then that way you can account for the space taken up by the score line. Then I'll go ahead and varnish the panels back down, and I prefer to do that on the cardstock. I don't really like to varnish on the pattern paper where I can help it, just because it causes a little bit of a sheen look to it. Okay, and here I'm taking about an inch in from the edge there on the belly band, and then lining that up on my grid mat just to make sure it's straight going across. And then I'll bring in my card base and then just sort of wrap that around so I can see where um, the belly band needs to fold over. Okay, just kind of lining that up, making sure that looks straight. Okay, and then again, I'll just kind of go in about an inch or so from the end of the pattern paper there and adhere the other end of the belly band to itself. Okay, and now that'll be our belly band for the card. And next up, I'm going to bring in the front panel that will be adhered to the belly band. So just lining the belly band up on the card, that way I can make sure that the front panel is adhered to the belly band where it needs to be. Whenever I have the front panel sort of lined up with all the sides evenly distributed. Just testing out the belly band now. Make sure it's going to fit and slide on and off easily. All right, now I have brought in Simon Says Stamps Bouncy Happy Birthday die set, and I just found a purple cardstock in my stash that sort of matched the pattern paper, and then also cut out the sentiment with the white cardstock in order to give a little dimension, and just gluing those two together now. And then the shadow die, I brought in Spellbinder's Treasured cardstock, and this is the Silver Assorted pack, and this is the Pearl Metallic 92-pound cardstock from that set. And that's what I'll use for the shadow layer, and just lining that up to adhere the two pieces together. Okay, and now this will sit on top of the front panel, just lining that up. I'll go ahead and glue that on there now, just using Barely Art Precision Glue. Okay, and that fits perfectly across that panel. And then I will bring in just some Pink and Main embellishments that I have in my stash, and I thought that the light pink color brought out the pink that's in this paper, and so just chose a few of those to scatter across the panel here. All right, and that finishes up my card for today, just kind of showing again the gatefold technique here and trying to show how beautiful the paper is. Okay, and then here's just a couple of pictures to show the completed card. Thank you for checking out my creation today. I hope you liked the card, and if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button and subscribe as well if you haven't already. And thank you so much.